too busy for me when I had my Anna. They regarded me as though I had an infectious condition, as though the loss of a child were viral, as though being near me were to guarantee that one day their children would disappear too. Nick has become distant, but I don't blame him. Instead of the minutiae you discuss with your husband, how was work? Don't forget we're heading to the Sheltons for cocktails on Friday night. I took the van in for the oil change today. That which isn't minutia casts a pall over everything. Work and cocktail parties and oil changes are too trivial. But we can't really talk about that the little girl we made is missing thing either, because that is too overwhelming. So yet again we eat another meal of broiled salmon and saffron rice, our last meal before he goes on yet another overseas business trip in silence. I used to miss him when he went on business trips. Now, the only thing I miss is his laundry. I've taken to gardening, the only activity that seems not to remind me of Anna. Before she vanished, there wasn't a garden of any sort behind my house. In autumn, the flower beds were buried beneath dead leaves. In spring, dandelions sprouted through the rotting wood chips. In summer, some withered stalks thrust up around the grubby, cracked bird bath. But after Anna went missing and my friends went away, I grew roses, geraniums, and forsythia. When that was done, I moved over to the area near the woods and put in hemlocks, careful, always careful, to never plant in the area where I thought my Anna would have trodden in case she returned and couldn't find her way back into the yard. In our neighborhood, the houses are abreast with nary a hedge between them, and sometimes I sense my former friends watching me. Busy with their children indeed. They seem to have plenty of time to stare at a grief-stricken soul on her haunches clawing rocks from the ground. There is the one in the pink house next door who isn't busy with her children because she has none. Anja, who grew up in Madagascar but moved here when she married Grant. She was from the capital city there. I imagined it a lush, rainbowed place full of parties because Anja is always dressed in the bright colors of a plumed bird and her speech is melodic, even though sometimes it's difficult to comprehend. This works both ways, though, because when she first moved in, 2 years before Anna went missing, I invited her for ladies' night. She asked what she could bring, and I told her salad, since I knew my other friends liked to grandstand with their oysters Rockefeller and mango martinis. No one would deign to bring simple greens. Anja showed up at the door with rice and a carved coconut full of sauce that reeked of chili and ginger, an appetizer no one touched. She also regaled us with odd stories. She told us she was born because her relatives perform a ritual in which they unearth their ancestors' bodies and replace their burial cloths. Women who cannot conceive, like her mother, jam a piece of the old shroud beneath their mattresses as a cure. And she told us that she knows there is such a thing as a man-eating tree, which flourishes deep in the Madagascar jungles and has claimed its share of wayward explorers since the island's discovery. Diane, tall, broad, and pear-shaped, who was still busy poking fun at a putrid death shroud as a fertility treatment when Bethany, who lives in the greenhouse next door, bulldozed the conversation. Every culture has its antiquated cures, but a man-eating tree? Really now? She has 4 small girls, and I could never imagine how she could have given birth to them, just about one right after the other when she's shaped like a string. I was chubby after Anna and still can't get rid of my pouch. That's absurd. Not so much. Anja sipped her martini. You hear of the Venus flytrap, the corpse flower? They eat meat. Bethany, who always reminds me of a chicken when she's gossiping, pulled her head back and looked like she was about to cluck. Instead, she daintily wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin and said, "But a tree as big as you're saying that just reaches out and grabs people? That just doesn't make any sense." The Kodo tribe, they sacrificed young women to the trees to ensure that they would have a good harvest, Anja says. Bethany squawked in laughter. Be amused. Anja set her empty glass on the counter and met Bethany's stare. These trees, they have a fanahi, intelligence, character, part of a man that is forever a soul. They know flesh from flesh, and they can pick choose their victims. That quieted everyone down. Bethany looked at me in the ensuing silence, then gathered up the dirty appetizer plates. Diane, Sabrina, and the other women demurred to the sitting room and helped themselves to the Linzer tarts I'd served on my bone china. While the others had been unsettled by the story, I was charmed by it. Anja was quite an entertainer, although I never invited her over again. She wasn't one of us. Clearly, she never would be. Today I'm weeding the garden, pulling up stubborn pachysandra that have been threatening to choke my roses, and I hear Anja say to me, "Christelle, you have such a good garden. I brought you this." I stand and brush the dirt off my knees, even though I'm certain I have a smudged face and root-threaded hair. Anja, stunning in a yellow and pink blouse, carries a chartreuse and orange ceramic pot adorned with purple crosses. In it sits something akin to and twice the size of a pineapple, but where this common fruit's angular leaves should be are hairy, purplish-green, sinuous strands, their tips curling, pulsing, moving like the tentacles of a squid. My stomach knots. "Something for your garden." She holds it forward. I take a step back. "What is it?" She smiles. Her teeth are faultless. "It is a tepe, a sacred tree, a man-eating tree." It doesn't look big enough to be a tree, and I'm sure she is sewing more stories. "Oh, come now, you were just making conversation." She furrows her brow. "It was no story. I gave you the truth. Here it is, for you." In her greenhouse next door, Bethany stands at the picture window in her dining room, looking into my yard. She's sipping a mug of something, and next to her is the youngest of her 4 blonde girls, Kathy, who was the same age my Anna was when she disappeared. The child rushes to her side and pulls on her pant leg. Bethany notices I see her staring and shuttles her daughter away from the window. "You need someone who will not run away on you," Anja says. "Someone you can love and care for, someone who will always be there." I just stare at it. "Take it." She thrusts it into my hands. I have no choice. I wrap my hands around the cool ceramic. "Plant it." She turns to go back to her pink house. I watch her retreat across the lawn. I see Bethany has returned to the window and is eyeing me again. I remember my husband will be in China for another 3 weeks. Someone who will not run away on you. Someone you can love and care for. Someone who will always be there. The serpentine appendages quiver and reach. "Anja!" I yell. She turns. It won't eat me, will it?" Anja throws her head back and laughs, a loud guffaw. "You are its mother now. It does not bite the hand which feeds it." I like the sound of mother. How do I take care of it? It will eat bugs and perhaps a small animal which crosses its path when it gets big enough. If you really want it to grow, give it love. Talk to it. It will listen and know your soul. Oh, and give it meat, raw steak. 4 times a day and it will grow like the size of your house in a fast way. She nods, turns, and continues back to her house. Something touches my breast. It is one of the tree's tentacles. It stirs something inside me, something I've not felt in a long time. "Come now, baby," I say, letting the tentacle curl around my finger. It is cool and muscular. "Let's get you planted." So if you want to see what happens,